Hello everyone, and welcome to Hill Street. Today's story is My Computer is Haunted by Ambitious Ad 691. If you end up enjoying this story, please leave a like, and if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street, and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. Now, let's get to this nightmare. If you have a weak stomach, I'd advise you not to read through this, as I'm going to recall a pretty detailed and graphic memory. Now, I'm not the most tech-savvy individual out there, but I do know for sure that what happened tonight isn't due to an error or a glitch. For context, this all started around July. I'd come home from work at around 4:30 and hop on my computer for an hour or so to briefly check some emails amongst other things. I'm not on the computer much since I only really use it for work purposes, but I still make sure to maintain the software and keep it updated. I've never had any problems with it before until one particular evening when I came home a little later than usual. I arrived home at around 6 that evening, and to my surprise, the computer was already on. I knew I hadn't left it on, but I made the assumption that it might have been from the update the previous night. The weird business started becoming apparent once I hopped on it though. It felt a lot slower, as if the computer was lagging due to something running in the background. And sure enough, it was just my emails. I carried on, but right before I hopped off, I noticed a text file on my desktop. I clicked it open, and nothing happened. I waited for a while, as I assumed it had to do with my computer's sluggishness, but it never opened. So I deleted it, then turned off my PC. For a few days after this, everything seemed normal, albeit my computer was still running slightly slower, but nothing too troublesome to deal with. That was until I started noticing strange emails popping up in my inbox every few minutes from what seemed to be the same sender. None of them had a subject, only a date, which read 26/03/2009. I didn't know what the date meant, as it had no significance to me, not a birthday, anniversary, or any other particular event I could think of. After a while, the constant emails started to get annoying, so I blocked the sender. Immediately after this, another email from an unknown sender came through, and the image I saw when I clicked on the file attached will be forever burnt into my brain. A young girl who looked no older than her early teens, sliced almost entirely in half and hanging from the ceiling by her large intestine and a few nails that pinned her hands to 2 large pillars on either side of her body. Her bottom half was barely attached to her, only held together by what looked like some duct tape. I was horrified, but I couldn't look away. I was in a trance for a few seconds, until a loud garble and screech echoed from my computer, snapping me back to reality. I tried everything to stop the noise, but no matter what, it kept going. It seemed to get louder and louder, and I began to panic. I ran outside in pure fear and watched from my window as the computer screen started to get brighter. I could still hear the warped garbling from the outside, and as I continued looking into my house, I saw the computer start to flicker and flash, and emerging from the screen, I saw what looked like a hand. I ran straight down the driveway and hopped into my car, which I had parked on the curb, then drove all the way to my town's local church. Miraculously, I made it in time to find the priest, Father Angelo. I got out of my car and practically jumped at him to explain my situation, speaking so quickly I could barely understand myself. It was a miracle he could translate what I was saying. He took me inside the church and sat me down, then asked me to calmly re-explain the situation. I told him everything, and I watched his expression become somber the more I spoke. After I finished speaking, we both went quiet. We sat in the silence for a moment before he sighed, then started to speak. I believe you have a demonic entity in your home. I don't know what you've done to summon it, or how it has become attached to you, but whatever it is, we must stop it. If she's already made it this far then." He stopped there, then got up and began walking for the door. I followed him, and we got into my car and drove back to my house. The second we arrived, unease washed over me. All the lights were now off, and we could no longer see in. The computer screen was off as well, but the front door was still open as I left it. I was as nervous as one could imagine, but I followed the priest inside as he led the way with his candle and holy cross. The house was so still, it was almost sickening. We walked to the office, where it was still the same as I left it. No signs of disruption or an entity anywhere. I looked to my left to see Father Angelo, the expression on his face remaining composed. Suddenly, there was a loud crash behind us, and I whipped my head around to see nothing but darkness. The computer, which was now behind me, lit up again, with the garbling and screeching practically stunning me. I covered my ears and looked back at Father Angelo, who was now holding his cross up at the screen and shouting something in Latin. From the screen emerged the hand again, this time followed by a decaying head and half a torso. I fell back and watched as Father Angelo continued to shout. The lights in my house were now flashing and buzzing, and the floor beneath me felt like it was going to crumble apart. Father Angelo screamed out, no longer chanting Latin, instead begging to the creature. Please stop this," he shouted. "I'm so sorry. I should have never left you there. I'm sorry." The screeching got louder, and just when I thought it was the end for us, Father Angelo reached into his pocket and grabbed a vial of holy water. He doused the creature as well as my computer in it, and the creature let out an unholy cry before disintegrating and vanishing. Father Angelo didn't hesitate to douse my computer in holy water shortly after. He slumped to the floor, huffing and puffing. His face was sweating and his eyes watering. I didn't dare ask questions. After a few moments, we both got up, and I thanked him. He left, and I called my brother and asked if I could stay with him for a few nights to recollect myself. Since that happened, I found a new place, and moved far from where it happened. I burnt all the belongings in that office before I left, and bought myself a new computer. I never heard from or saw Father Angelo again, and for a few months, everything seemed to be going okay. But tonight on the news, they reported the death of a well-known and beloved priest. Father Angelo had died at the age of 57, of seemingly natural causes. The report went on to say that he was buried in the same cemetery that honored his late wife and daughter, who both died on March of 2009. When the date flashed across the screen, a chill ran up my spine. I've been feeling uneasy, and I know I won't be able to sleep well. My mind is racing, hundreds of thoughts rushing through at the same time. It's now 11 p.m. as I finish typing this, and I've been distracted again by the dim light and low hum of my computer in the other room.